Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, for those of you that regularly go to my website, agweather.com, that's ag-wx.com, you probably saw some of my maps were a bit wonky yesterday, and those maps were the artificial intelligence forecast maps. And that was because yesterday, the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting, or ECMWF, finally made their artificial intelligence forecasting system fully operational, which means they changed some of the file structure, they changed some of the variable names, and also some of the ways that the variables were labeled. And I just had to go through and fix all of that. But here it is. It's now a fully operational model. And we're pretty excited about this. And most excited for me is that they're going to continue to provide it for free to the public at its quarter-degree resolution. So just to kind of keep you up to speed on how the model's been performing, one of the biggest advantages to the AIFS model is that it tends to be very steady in its skill scores. So if you compare the operational, this is the one that's based entirely on fluid dynamics and physics, okay, the ECMWF version of their models, or the GFS to the artificial intelligence. We can look at the skill scores over the last 90 days, and again, you can see how they compare. One of the things that the AIFS model is much less prone to are these big dropouts. Now, you can see a few times where it did do that, but we expect it to be, as they're continuing to develop and get this model honed in, that it will continue to be one of our better statistical performers. Now, you know that lately I've not shown a lot of it, right? And there's been a few reasons for that, but we're going to continue to work it into our kind of forecasting regimen because they've now added a lot more variables. For example, one on snow. So they've not had this up until yesterday when it was released, and this is what the 7-day snowfall forecast looks like from the European Model Artificial Intelligence Forecasting System. And so we're going to compare this to other models just in a few moments here, but I'll be slowly kind of getting my website reorganized with all of these new maps soon, so I'm pretty excited about that. And coming back to Nutrien, I start on Monday, so we'll be back on their YouTube channel. It won't change anything on AgWeather. You'll still see the playlist there, but I'll be back on their channel very soon. So it's kind of exciting, and I just wanted to bring up to speed on some of those changes that were happening here. So since we're talking about snow, it is kind of interesting to look across the United States and see that every state in the U.S. this year, including Hawaii and Alaska, have had snow. Some important things to note: there are places down here along the Gulf Coast that have still had more snow than pockets throughout the Midwest, as you can see here just in the color shading alone. But overall, we continue to look at this particular map within the context of the most recent data. So this particular product has data back to 2008. So if you take all the years previous to this one and find their averages and then compare this year to that, you get this departure map. Now, lately, in the month of February and back into January even once, we even saw better moisture in terms of snowfall getting into the Sierra Nevada, but they're still off in places here, some places 30 to 60 inches behind their normal snowfall snowfall extent. This has kind of been the most active quarter in the West. We had big snows early in the season and also a couple of times lately in parts of the Western High Plains. I'm thinking about the November event, plus what we just saw there a weekend ago. Our lake effect has been truly impressive this year. You can see several of these locations well above average. But I think the neat thing to do when you look at this is as to not only see the departures, which is measured in inches, but see the departures measured in percent. And now we can find those really active corridors pretty easily. And one of the ones I'm continuing to be concerned about here is just this whole region of the upper Midwest into the northern plains, where we've lately seen the snow line retreat very, very quickly. I appreciate some of the comments yesterday on the video talking about, great, we melted some of the snow that was on the ground here, but because of our frozen soils, we really didn't get to keep much of that. And that is why snowpack in this area is very critical at the end of March. Because that snow, when it melts, typically more of it is kept in the soil as we get a pretty rapid thaw, which will be something we can kind of maybe hope for going forward. Coming back to our western mountains, though, I do want to show you the latest data on the upper Colorado Basin. And you can see when you compare the last 10 years, this would rank 7th out of 10 in terms of snowpack. It's about 83% of the 30-year average. We need to see this number climb going forward. And I do have some good news for western U.S. snowpack going forward, but I don't necessarily have that news for the southern parts of this mountain chain down here, where our values are still very, very low. But as you come across like Colorado Rockies, 110% in partly through here, the region that we're looking at a moment ago for the upper Colorado Basin is this entire region, and you can see the North Platte, the South Platte, they've had decent snowpack on those particular river basins as of late. But we still want to continue to see these numbers improve as we go forward, and we're going to be looking for what in the flow of the atmosphere could do that. So I do have some better news on that front for the western United States. Okay, let's come back to just a quick look at yesterday's satellite data. Most of the country, a lot of us, saw a lot of sunshine yesterday. It was a bit cloudy here across the northern tier of the U.S., and we had a system exiting here in the northeast, but a lot, like for example, most of our cotton belt, sun belt, very, very sunny. It was interesting as I was playing this through, we did again see some convection popping up here with our next clipper that rolled through. But what caught my attention was actually going on in the southeast. Now we can see down here that there were some controlled burns under the more favorable wind conditions that we could do these controlled burns without the risk of major wildfires spreading. So you can kind of see the smoke here. It's also interesting to note that the smoke was blowing in this direction here and that direction there. If you can just kind of imagine the loop, there's just an area of high pressure that's sitting down here over the south, helping keep things clear. We're going to watch that high pressure move a bit farther over to the south and east today. And right in through here, there is some surface convergence wrapping itself up into a low that early this morning was moving out of Wisconsin through northern Illinois and over to the eastern Corn Belt. And there's a decent amount of moisture getting pushed on this side while we've got, really nice, we call this diffluence in the flow happening right here along this axis. And so just to kind of show you what's been going on there, here's just a quick look starting last night going through early this morning of our national radar. A couple of neat things to point out here. Here was our light rain on the more mild air moving through. So this is not as though this is like a big organized front dropping tremendous amounts of rain, but it did bring in some wetter weather into this region. But take a look at all of the interesting activity down here across parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Last night, as the skies cleared out, we saw a pretty strong inversion set up, and we got to see some neat things kind of showing up on the radar. So several of these spikes that you see here, these are likely blocked beams that are dealing with cell phone antenna that really we communicate on our cell phones with radio waves that are very similar, or microwaves that are similar to what we use on radar. But then there was a pretty deep inversion across the south last night, and so you can also see wind farms and a lot of anomalous echoes down here. And just to show you the strength of those inversions, I went down to Brownsville, and you can see that last night they cooled off to about 60 degrees. But if you come up to, 850 millibars, that's about a mile above the surface. The temperature was almost 70 degrees. And then I went over to Dallas-Fort Worth just to take a look at theirs. 58 was their low early this morning. But look at this large inversion, very dry air, just a mile above our heads. And the temperature's again about 70, 71 degrees Fahrenheit at that level. So that is what an inversion looks like on one of our weather balloons as we launch those. We call them soundings. So very interesting. Now, I will be watching the soundings from this whole region next week because we're going to mix out these inversions and build in some instability. And that instability is going to set up for, I'll show you the timing, but next week, the risk of strong to severe storms across the south with this big system that's going to enter the western United States later this week. What's prompting all of that is this. As we look out here across the open Pacific Ocean, I've got three very large storm systems that are spinning up. And what we need to do is kind of figure out why they're there and then where they're going to be going and if they're going to impact the United States. Really what's happening here is that it's the upper level flow, which is seen here, that's helping to generate these lows. And for the most part, it's going to set us up for a pretty active go at next week. In the meantime, we're kind of still in a bit of a blockade here just off the west coast where the flow doesn't extend. But we've got big questions about these jet extensions, and usually it's when the jet extension either punches all the way through and gets to California, or instead of getting past Hawaii, which is here, so I'm just going to say about right there, okay, retracts. And what we're noticing here is that in the forecast, we're looking at not an extension all the way to California, but a retraction. And that is going to be interesting to get us into the, this full month of March. Now, what's interesting about it is what that retraction does to the jet stream. And we can look at it several different ways. I just noticed that if I looked at the European model ensemble, let me just take you back here in time. There's our jet extension. So there's the weaker flow in the west. Notice that as we pull this back and get to Saturday, into Sunday and Monday. Okay, now do you see how it's breaking up in this area? Did you notice that it kind of sends troughs all the way to the west coast? We're going to watch that. Then you get here into Tuesday and Wednesday, and now that blocking split is happening here, meaning we're starting to get flow in two different forms coming back to the west coast of the United States. When is this? This is, midweek next week, toward the end of the week next week. And as the jet fully retracts back over toward Japan, now the weaker flow is here. And take a look. We've got pieces of the atmosphere coming together. There it is. 1, 2. If you heard me speak at all this winter, I talked at length about how we were missing this component of the atmosphere. It seems to be coming back for parts of the early start to March. Now we need to do something with that, so I want to show you the big idea. What I want to see on this map is just a regular wave train like this of blues and reds. The blues being the troughs, the reds being the ridges. And as we go through here, all right, take a look at this. There's Sunday. We're going to watch one system exit east with some cold air on Sunday. We're going to watch this system come right over California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah. By Monday, again, while a lot of us here will be in Denver for Commodity Classic, for those of you that are in ag, that's going to produce an interesting system that moves across the country. And you notice, look, there it is. That's an open flow. That's a normal progression of typical wavelength, what we call Rossby waves. And I see it through March 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And what I like about this is there's no major indications as that jet retracts that the pattern is going to block and get stuck. So we could be in for a pretty good ride for the month of March, and we need March and early April to be wet for a lot of us, especially across the northern plains where I showed you the snow deficit. There's a soil moisture deficit. We have got soil moisture deficits up and down the plains. There's pockets in the southeast that have been drier. We just need the moisture out of this if this pattern can stay active. Now, in the next 7 days, it's the old familiar corridors. All right, what am I talking about? Well, it's here and it's there. These are the areas that, if you've been watching my videos now for a while, we've been talking about these regions as getting quite a bit of precipitation. I'll show you the probabilities in a few minutes. But we're trying to see a little bit of a gap bridge here. What I don't like is over the next 7 days, we continue to see, this region stay drier. And until that subtropical component of the jet comes in, which it may do in the month of March, this region stays considerably drier as well. Same thing for parts of Florida, which have been dry too. So let's do some model comparison, okay? You're going to watch in the near term some clippers roll out of Canada over the Great Lakes into the Northeast. There's the first one by Thursday, okay? We then watch that one sneak through. There's the second one on Friday. Models are pretty well timed, although the European's a bit farther north with the snow than the GFS is. We'll compare those maps in a moment. That one sneaks into the Northeast. You can see right there. So it's really going to hit more of the Great Lakes, maybe around and north of like London and Ontario here, sweeping through kind of the U.S.-Canada border in the Northeast. But there will be some interior snows there. Then you know that on Sunday we're watching this low. Here it is. And the high-pressure cell that's sinking right here is going to continue to move in this direction. And the flow around highs goes like this, which means when it gets here, it opens up the Gulf. So here we are. This is Sunday into Monday and Tuesday. So what we've got is a wide open area here of moisture transport. We have a broader trough that's come into the west, so there's snow. And what we're going to be curious about is the phasing. In other words, how close to each other are these two waves, and what could they do to create a more, just more significant low. So by midday Tuesday, you can see the snow back here in the Colorado Rockies coming out of the Front Range. And that's going to be a spot of many of us are going to be watching carefully as we try to leave Commodity Classic. For the rest of us, this whole region here, again, when are we in time? This is next Tuesday. We have to be discussing the risk of strong to severe storms. On the northern side of it, very wet conditions. And as we watch the European model, which has been the most consistent on the timing and placement of this is Tuesday afternoon to evening, getting into early Wednesday morning. That's a big spring storm system that the GFS is now in better alignment with in terms of the timing. Remember I told you yesterday they were so far apart? Hey, they're much closer today. But from Tuesday here to Wednesday there, and then probably Thursday watching over here, we're going to keep a close eye on the severe weather threat from this system on its southern side. We then have a wave that follows it in the European model, but that's getting pretty far out there for an operational run. So a couple of things to take note of with this. All right. One, this is Monday night's convective available potential energy. So in other words, we're looking at the risk of the atmosphere destabilizing for the support of storms. That's Monday night. We then get it through the overnight hours into early Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, and evening. So this will be the second time period over which we watch a corridor for strong to severe storms. And then we get out there to Wednesday and then Thursday as it presses east. So just take a look at that. You're going to start in the southern plains toward the mid-south. We're going to move through the south right along the Mississippi River into the southeast as we go from Tuesday, Wednesday to Thursday of next week. And the Storm Prediction Center has already got out for next Tuesday night a risk area. This is their day 7 product. So we just want to be aware that it's not just a phantom in the models that we're looking at here. Some of the best predictors of severe weather, in fact, the best. There is no one better. They are out now, right now, looking at that risk as well for that region. There's also going to be some strong winds associated with this. And if I could show you, I will be adding the European model wind gusts very soon. But what you've got here is the GFS forecast. So if we start off looking at cumulative maximum wind gusts, in other words, we just keep adding them up and replacing wherever the new strongest wind comes in. That's what I mean by cumulative. You can see that we are expecting later this week very strong winds to leave the Canadian prairie, run through the northern plains into the Midwest, all the way over to the Ohio Valley. We're talking winds that could be gusting, upwards of 40, maybe a couple of spots up to 50 miles an hour. But when we see that jet retract and we get better action, better wave action across the United States, we just have better chance for storm systems and they get windy. I mean, spring is a windy time of year. And at some point over the next 15 days, most of the country is going to have wind gusts, over 30, 40 miles an hour, possibly even stronger than that in certain pockets. Okay, now to some maps I think a lot of you want to see. Let's do a 4-model comparison on snow. I'm only going to go out 7 days. That's the European model solution. This is the GFS. This is the NBM, the National Blend of Models. And here's our AI forecast. Okay, I will be going to this larger number. I'll take this back to a single decimal point rather than 2. We actually don't have that kind of precision in reality. We just have it in the model. But there you go. That's what it looks like. You'll have all of these stacked up on my website very soon as well. And I'm pretty pumped about that. NBM and artificial intelligence. In terms of total precip, this is who over the next 15 days or 2 weeks essentially has the best chance at over an inch. And as I mentioned, it's those kind of familiar corridors here and here that are looking the wettest. If we look at the drier side of this is the chance at staying under a half inch. Now, if we get the jet to slow down and make more of these waves, we will begin to work on this. And if the subtropical component comes in, we will work on that region as well. But I'm very concerned about these 2 spots because of what the CPC released, okay? And if you look at the CPC forecast for droughts, this is their seasonal outlook. Let's just open this up. That newest update released on February 20th has me very concerned that they included such a large area here into the drought development likely. Now, we kind of, threw out a hypothesis that given the persistence in the pattern, this is something that's likely to happen. But I just don't. We need to get this pattern to slow down, curl up lows back here in the plains, and that will begin to just take away this risk that you see here. All right. But right now, certainly over the next 15 days, getting moisture into those regions is going to be difficult. But that jet retraction for this mid-March timeframe could be huge going forward. All right, let's talk about week 2 precipitation patterns. Here they are. You do note that as the pattern gets going again, I'm going to pull up the European ensemble. This is where we start to get more of the West Coast involved. Why? Because the block that was here will be in week 2 way out in the middle of the Pacific. And we'll just need to see if we can get some of these storm systems to roll through the midsection of the country after we get toward mid-month to start to beat back on some of the drier risks here. In terms of temperatures, I want to show you this. This is starting back on the 20th and 21st. We're looking globally. The colors of the dots tell you whether or not you are approaching minimum records or setting them or tying them, or the red ones, so the warmer color ones, that we're telling you where you're getting the toward the max, right? Setting new all-time highs. Watch it reset. So a week ago, we were cold around the Black Sea. We were cold in the central United States, very mild in Western Europe up towards Scandinavia. Now we get into this week and watch the mild take over across the United States. We're going to continue to see that while this colder air moves through parts of the Middle East, leaving Turkey getting over into parts of the Middle East. As we look at today's highs and compare them to average, there you go. Just another very mild day for a lot of the country, except up along the spine of the Rocky Mountains here. We then go into Thursday and Friday. Saturday, remember, we're going to watch that deeper low cut into the northeast. So there it is on Saturday. Into Sunday, it's cool in the northeast. These are high temperatures. But thankfully, with the way this pattern's established, it's not going to last long. And already by next Tuesday, we're going to be watching very closely a low that's going to be coming out of this area. We'll look at these maximum temperatures, probably continue to drop in this region, increasing the chances for some snow. But how far are they going to drop? If you look at our kind of 15-day, temperature matrix, I mean, just blur your eyes and look at it. I got the European on the top, the GFS in the middle, and the artificial intelligence on the bottom. Day 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. And as you look at it, there is not a source of cold air, at least through the middle of this month, showing up. Now, I've made a case for you. I did it yesterday that I think after mid-month, toward the end of the month, start of April, there will be another cold intrusion based purely off of persistence on the timing of these colder air outbreaks. But we could have a lot change between now and then, so we just need to know that it's a possibility. I'll keep you informed of that as I see better evidence. So here's the last couple things I want to do. We're still working on just some new ideas, but until I get some sort of significant change, either in the MJO or, anything else, I'm going to have to stick with the persistence I've seen in the models. So here's the March outlook from the European, and I've shown you this at least 15 times. We're wetter here, we're wetter there. Look, do you see how it filled in down here? That was what we had projected it to do, and it certainly did it. But there's this corridor that remains drier until we can really start to build in better flow that slows systems down to pull the moisture back into Texas and Oklahoma. So that's March 1 through 31. If I just go into April, the model now goes out from March 12th to April 12th. And what I didn't like about the way this looks is that it just tries to open up more of this region toward, some just drier conditions. And I'll make a point about this. I made this earlier in the week, but I want to bring it up again. If we go to where we've had all of our severe weather so far this year, okay, it's mostly been in the southeast. And again, a lot of folks that storm chase, some of them for a living, many of them for hobbies, they're talking a lot about the Ohio Valley, and they're talking about what we call Dixie Alley as their main chase targets this year. And I made this comment to a group yesterday. I said, if we're wrong, and guys like Reed Timmer are over here in Oklahoma or Kansas or Texas or Nebraska, or Jim Cantori gets stationed over here, then that is an excellent signal that this drought pressure in the midsection of the country is not there. But we have got to return an active severe weather season into this region, unfortunately, because that is how you pull moisture back into the plains. That is a major must-have in order to beat back this drought risk going into 2025. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about very briefly is just South America. Honestly, there's really no change in this forecast. I hit it yesterday. We're getting smaller amounts of precipitable water pushing into this part of Brazil. The subtropical high is inching its way over this area, which means we're pulling our moisture through here, which is getting a lot into the Amazon. It's getting into the, I would say, less productive parts of Mato Grosso over toward Rondônia. We would need to see more of this moisture spreading back toward Goiás, Tocantins, down here to Mato Grosso do Sul. So this is a bit of a red flag for me just watching this come through. And like I said, every forecast video, we're going to look at this 2-week outlook and see if that area continues to show drier. That could be significant on safrinha crops planted there. Certainly wet in Argentina, continued storms in this pattern, but right now our target area is going to be these very productive Brazilian states that continue to show drier. Okay, that's all I got for you today. I will talk to you tomorrow morning. I'll be in Advance, Missouri, so I'm looking forward to heading down there to give a talk. So we'll see you soon. Thanks.